Erik with Full Mind MMA, joined today by UFC middleweight Dricus Du Plessis. Dricus, it's great to talk to you.
Man, thank you for having me.
Of course, it's a big week for you. Pretty big fight announced December 10th. Darren Till. I know you called him out on Twitter back in August, but were you kind of surprised when this fight actually came to fruition for you?
Yeah, actually, not really. I mean, they previously asked me if I would step into fighting for earlier about, I think it was in the same card as Khamzat Diaz, which was kind of weird because I didn't see him on the card, but I mean, the UFC asked, and I said, sure. That was the 3 weeks notice fight, which I accepted, and I just asked them, like, okay, what's the answer? Is the fight happening? Is it happening? And I couldn't wait anymore, so I was just like, nah, let me just ask him myself.
I didn't hear that before. So they wanted to add that to the Hamzat and Nate Diaz card.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, they phoned me and asked if I would take that fight on a 3 weeks notice, and I said sure. So I mean, 2 days went by after I accepted, and didn't hear anything back from Darren's team. So decided to ask him on Twitter, listen, is this happening? What's up?
Well, you're very respectful on Twitter. It seems like you're a fan of his. You like Darren, yes?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's an amazing fighter. I've been following his career ever since he started with the UFC. Uh, I mean, I have a lot of respect for what he's done. I believe he's an exceptional fighter.
He hasn't been too active in the last few years. Hasn't had the best luck per se. I believe he's 1-4 in his last five. What are you expecting from him come December 10th? Do you think this is going to be your toughest test in the UFC?
Well, I mean, in terms of names, yeah, I don't think they come much tougher than Brad Tavares, to be honest. I think in terms of skill, Darren is right up there. Also depends on which Darren arrives on the night. But I mean, my mindset going in is definitely not fighting the Darren that showed up the last few times or the Darren we've seen. So I think he's had a rough road. I think in his not only in his career but his life outside of fighting. I think uh, it seems like things have been not really going his way. So for me, the way I'm prepping, the way my mindset is going into this fight is I'm fighting the best Darren Till today. That's the way I'm prepping. I'm fighting the Darren Till that rocked up there and took out the legend Cowboy Cerrone in half a round. I'm stepping in there to fight the Darren Till that everybody used to know. And that's where my mindset at. I mean, I'm fighting the top 10, number 9 ranked middleweight in the world on the road to title. So for me, now in whichever shape he shows up, in whichever Darren Till shows up, I'll be ready for it. And I really hope it's the best Darren Till today because that's going to bring the best out of me. And at the end of the day, that's going to cement me as a top 10 contender.
Well, you're moving very quickly up the rankings. You had three, fantastic fights, two pretty quick knockouts, and then just the war with Brad Tavares that gained you a lot of fans. But just your fourth fight in the UFC, you already have a top 10 opponent. Did you kind of expect things to move this quickly when you first got signed to the promotion a few years back?
Yeah, the big thing with me is coming from South Africa, we're not really on the map as a nation of in competing in the UFC. So, I mean, we had a couple of guys who pioneered as South Africans in the UFC, but the sport's so young in the country that those guys didn't really go out and prove what we have to offer. And for me, I had a successful career in EFC, which is an African-based promotion. Then went over to KSW in Europe, and I mean, I racked up. I think I had 16 fights before the UFC. So for me, going into the UFC with the international experience that I had, fighting uh, world-class opponents, going to the UFC for me, we had that game plan. We kind of said, "Listen, we're going up slowly but surely, but also not starting at the back. We started in the top 30, got a top 20 fight. And, that wasn't really the plan to go to the top 10 so quick. But after that top 25, we got the shot at Brad Tavares. That was really a big test for me in terms of where I'm where I'm at in my career and how do I stack up with these guys. Being from South Africa, you don't really know, you don't get all that training with the guys from America, Brazilians, the top fighting nations.
Mhm.
So and that Brad Tavares, I went out there to prove what I can do and prove to myself and to the world that listen, I'm not here to just compete in the UFC as a South African. I'm here to make history as a South African.
What do you kind of attribute that quick rise and success to? Because we see a lot of fighters, even with, 16, 20 fights of experience, come into the UFC and, they're not knocking people out as quickly as you are. They're not on the same level as Brad Tavares as quickly as you are. Why are you different, and why are you so successful so fast?
And I believe that the path has been written. Being UFC champion has been the only driving factor in my career, nothing else. And going into the UFC, and after my first fight, I realized these are just guys that got the opportunity to fight in the UFC. These are just like any other guy I fought. And that quick rise, I give testimony to my team and the fighting style that I bring to the table. Now I hear all the commentators, and I can't disagree with them. It's not really hard to see that the style is awkward, that the way I fight. So the way I see it is, look at Americans, the way the most American fighters fight, and they kind of have a pattern in the way they fight. If you look at the Russian-based fighters, they have a certain style of fighting. Same with the Brazilian fighters. So I'm bringing the South African style of fighting, and being a style that nobody knows. It seems weird, it seems awkward, but it's just the way we do it, and it's been successful so far. And my style is a style of, not winning a fight, but finishing a fight. Brad Tavares is the only fight I haven't finished, and big ups to him. He's the most durable guy I've ever seen in my life. So I think that's what pays tribute. Going out there and putting on fights and going out there and performing, not just going after a win, but going after spectacular finishes.
No, I mean, you said it best. I mean, it's funny because when I watch you, you're right. It's like you fight it like a different timing. It reminds me a little bit of how Jan Blachowicz fights, where like the punches are just coming at like a second before or after you think they would. I don't know. There's something similar there. So I'm glad that you brought up the style, since that's something that you notice as well, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think we have a very unique style. I've only had one head coach since the day I started in May. One team, it's my home, and sticking with them and the way we do things, and that's what we want to go out and show the world. I mean, doing this for the country, doing this for my team, doing this for the people that don't know South African or African MMA yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the rise of African MMA just as a continent, I mean, has been so enormous in the past few years. I know Dana White wants to go to Africa. I mean, I would imagine, people, they tend to talk about African MMA. You think Nigeria, Kamaru Usman, Israel Adesanya, or Cameroon with Francis Ngannou. You're kind of putting South Africa on the map now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's a massive honor for me to go out there and represent my country, raise the flag, and making history, being the first top 15 ranked South African to ever fight in UFC, and now getting the opportunity at top 10, which I certainly will be. I cannot wait for it. I can't wait for the explosion of African MMA to go even further, more beyond than the current African champions we have residing in other countries, but being born in Africa, this is just the next step. Not only born in Africa, but also residing in training.
Yeah. Have you watched the Brad Tavares fight back, since we keep talking about it? Have you seen it since the fight?
Oh, yeah. I like to watch my fights about 1 billion times.
What do you think when you go back and watch that? Because I watched it a couple of days ago for this interview, and I forgot what a great fight that was.
Yeah, I mean, just one absolute war. Especially in that last round. I knew he had round one. I had round two, and going on that third was, there was a lot of controversial ways of fighting, and lunging forward and almost getting desperate at a stage. But that being desperate wasn't because that's the way I fight. The being desperate was, Brad Tavares is an excellent counter puncher, and that first round, being calm, being composed, and trying not to over commit to punches. That's his style. He waits for you, makes you miss, he makes you strike, and then he replies with massive combos. And second round, we had to adapt. I had to make it a dogfight, and he's known for being extremely tough and fit. But I knew I had that. I knew when it comes to the dogfight, when it comes to the grind, when it comes to that fitness, that energy, that who wants it more? I know I have an edge on anybody in the whole division. I have an edge on anybody in the whole UFC. So that third round going in, No, I was a madman, and not only going in there recklessly, but also going in there to get that finish. Now, it might seem reckless, it might seem like I'm just lunging into punches, but that's not it. That's definitely not the case. It's a part of my winning strategy. It's people. That's what people think until you face me, and you realize if you're a counter puncher, with the amount of power and output that I can maintain for 3 rounds, you realize like you have to keep your hands up. There's no countering that. You can't counter. You have to block. And that was the game plan going into that third round. Is I have finished all my fights, and a lot of people doubted if I can go the distance because I've never gone the distance. So that fight was a big test for me, and that fight, I went out there and trying to get that finish, especially the final half of that round. I just said to myself, listen, it's all or nothing now. You have to get this finish. And like I said, didn't get the finish, but it wasn't for a lack of trying.
I mean, it was a spectacular fight. All of your fights in the UFC have been spectacular so far, all three of them. Do you have like a dream matchup as somebody that's kind of seen the UFC middleweights like rise while you're on your own come up in KSW? Is there someone that you've been watching for the last few years where you're like, yes, I want to fight them while I'm in the UFC?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a guy that I really look up to, massive fan, and also I think he is stylistically and overall the best middleweight in the UFC is Robert Whittaker. I think that'll be my taste before I fight for the title, and that's a hard taste. I think Robert Whittaker is an incredible athlete. I think he's an incredible fighter all around it, and that's the person that I believe will give me the hardest test. Even fighting for the belt won't be the same as fighting Robert Whittaker. I think Robert Whittaker will give me the hardest test, and that's another test I believe I will pass. But that's something that I want to put myself through. That's a fight that I want to use to prove to people and prove to myself I will be the best middleweight in the world.
That's interesting. So you think that he beat Adesanya that second time around?
I do not think he beat Adesanya. No, I scored that fight in Adesanya's favor too. I think Robert Whittaker could have beaten Adesanya in that fight. I think he let go of a lot of opportunities.
Interesting. What do you think of Adesanya versus Alex Pereira? I'm sure you're going to be watching that very closely.
Oh, absolutely. I actually can't wait for that fight. I think if you look at styles, I don't think Alex Pereira is a guy. I think Robert Whittaker beats Pereira quite easily. I just think in terms of style, Pereira has a similar style to Adesanya, which is incredible since he has beaten him twice before, I believe. So this is going to be interesting to see. Does Israel Adesanya go and be an MMA fighter and go and uses not his wrestling not only defensively but offensively? Because I believe that's going to be something that he needs to consider in this fight. I think he needs that wrestling in his back pocket because if you look at Pereira, he has incredible and massive stand-up credentials, but in MMA, he's just not that experienced. And I think the ground game is a much clearer way to victory for Adesanya. And, making this his first appearance as, listen, I'm an MMA fighter. And I think this is a fight to prove it because it's a much easier fight to prove it than, trying to wrestle a guy like Whittaker, for example.
Yeah. No, you made an excellent point. It's interesting that you think Whittaker would beat Alex Pereira very easily, though. Is that what you said?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's interesting. I'm sure he'd be happy that you said that. We just had him on last week, and he said that he actually wants to fight Alex Pereira in the future.
Oh wow! Yeah, that'll be an incredible fight. One thing with Pereira, I see him. I'm a really big middleweight. I know that for a fact. I've seen all the guys. Alex Pereira is a huge middleweight.
Yeah. No, it's unbelievable. Well, it's funny we're talking about, the title picture like it's so far away right now. But with a win over Darren Till, you figure you're one, maybe two fights away from actually being in that conversation for the title. It's October 7th today. Let's say October 7th, 2023. Where do you see yourself? Where do you want to be this time next year?
Now, if it's not a title shot already, I see UFC Africa. I see UFC Africa, I see South Africa, I see maybe Cape Town, and I see myself fighting for that belt.
Awesome. Well, I know I'd love to see it. Dricus, those are all the questions that I had for the day. Before I let you go, did you have anything, any teammates, sponsors, anything you wanted to promote? I'll give you the floor real quick.
Thank you so much. I mean, my team, Team CIT, South African team, small town, and we put in the world like my teammate Cameron Simon, also going to be fighting on the 10th of December. That's the second guy from our team, and he put on a massive performance on the Contender Series. Our team's head sponsor, USA Nutrition, absolutely amazing, and the whole of South Africa and the whole world that are showing a lot of love. I have to say that the amount of support that we've been getting as South Africans, myself, especially going to fight in the United States, fighting local US fighters, and the crowd's been absolutely amazing. All the fans, all the South Africans supporting and waking up at 2 and 4 a.m. to watch us fight. Really appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for the love. And I promise you I won't let you down. I'm coming from that belt, and I will be the champion of the UFC.
Awesome. Dricus, thank you again. It was great talking to you, and best of luck on December 10th.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you. Have a good one.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching this video. If you like our content, be sure to subscribe to Full Man MMA. And while you're at it, make sure to hit the bell icon as well so you never miss an update from us.